Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again Anima Noira. Anima, it's good to have you on again.
Good evening.
All right. So like we had been saying, a lot's happened since the last time you've been on.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah, a lot. So how have you been lately?
Well, sometimes things happen out of nowhere, but then you see it puts a total momentum of other events in motion, and then you see how, all of this was somehow destined and I guess even inevitable. So right now I'm just riding the wave after my YouTube ban.
Okay. Okay. Well, you're still on your website, on Instagram, on Twitter, and we'll go ahead and get more into that later. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that's on your essays, some essays that you wrote. And I encourage people to go to her website and read over some of her essays because there's a lot of deep stuff on there. Um, first of all, okay, so uh, you had said something about you gained an extra day one day.
Oh
Um,
my.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
you,
it was a I had a very paranormal experience, which however strangely does add up because in 2021, I had an experience of skipping a day. I went to bed on Thursday. That's actually even what my planner said, like I crossed it out Thursday. I go to bed, and the next morning, um, about 10 a.m., I start talking to my mother-in-law then and my ex-husband, and everybody in the house maintains that it's Saturday. And I'm like, no, no way, no, it's Friday. It was Thursday yesterday, and like here I can prove it. But they maintain it, and so we actually came up with some kind of conclusion back then that it just went away with the fairies. Like it's known in myth and legend that sometimes people just appear and they claim that they had a different experience of time. Like
mhm,
time is either missing or they have been there for way longer. Both of these phenomena are described pretty much all over the world.
mhm.
They're usually attributed to certain kinds of supernatural beings. So I never really figured out what happened. I figured out, Oregon is a big fairyland, so I just like lost that day.
Mhm.
But I got it back just recently. It was the craziest thing. So um
Yeah, you had said that Belial is rearranging timelines for you.
he does. He can do this thing that he calls a karmic loan, where he can alter the past, but it's like a loan that needs to be paid. So somebody, some force somehow borrowed that one day 2 years ago and now used it because I lived through Saturday twice
Mhm.
just recently. Like I knew that it was Sunday morning, so I was looking for my guest because I knew that I had my last live stream, a pretty big event, and that's what my planner said. But my guest is not showing up, and I'm like, what's wrong? And I launched the computer and it says it's Saturday, not Sunday yet. And I'm like, well, that's crazy because I just literally lived through Saturday yesterday and I
Mhm.
even visited certain events that only take place on Saturdays.
Right. Well,
So
I've
some and I
experienced.
and I
Go ahead.
do and I can only speculate like what does it exactly relate to, but
Mm.
the day that the time loan was paid back was exactly the day of the fulfillment of my pact with Mephistopheles. It was September 30th. The pact was supposed to be fulfilled on my end till that day. So I'm like, wow, this is some crazy stuff.
It is, and I think sometimes this stuff happens to people, but they don't want to sound like a crazy person, so they just don't talk about it. Or if they do, once they get ridiculed, they just fall in line with that. sheep
People have a
mentality of,
lot of
well, I guess it
experience that they don't talk about, or they even try to repress it because, see, I had a lot of missing time experiences before, but it was always just like minutes or hours. It was never like a full day like this. So this was my biggest one. And there was more, like experiencing something like I still get a lot of Mandela effect,
right.
where I see the timelines changing in front of my eyes. For example, in the house where I lived in Las Vegas, I I I arrived, and I used the code that I was given by the landlord to open the front door, and then 3 days later I'm bringing groceries back home and I use the same code and it doesn't work, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So a roommate opens the door and he claims that there has always been a different code in place, and the one that I have has been deleted 6 months ago. But I'm like, well, how was I able to use it 3 days ago? But I didn't press it because I didn't want to sound crazy. I figured out, okay, like we know what is it. It's these phenomena, just keep cool and act as if normal. That's what
Yeah.
my listeners advised to me. And I thought that was a pretty good piece of advice, because you don't want to make it worse for yourself by stressing out. Okay, it's some kind of timeline rearrangement, possibly caused by time travel magic, I think.
Yeah. It is
And I
possible.
and that day that I arrived there, it was crazy because I witnessed objects disappear, reappear, and double in the room. And I had a strong deja vu as well, where I'm like, I know how this room smells, but where would I know it from? I've never been here before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is possible for this stuff to happen. I think it happens all the time to people. And I think, like, I mean, I've had similar stuff happen to where I wake up and all of a sudden the world is different. Things that happened in the past didn't really happen, and different things happened instead.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and that all of this, I think, is a side effect of some form of time travel magic, which existed in ancient times. It exists in the future. Some other civilizations have it, and maybe we have it too, because a lot of people think that CERN in Switzerland does something to like realign the Earth timelines, the Large Hadron Collider. Some people also think that the HARP in Alaska can be doing this. I don't know, but I know that this technology is real. It exists. There's so much, proof for time travel that it's one of the most classical paranormal stories. But it is
it
like really weird.
it could
I
be
feel like
different
I
things.
was the target of something. Like there was some alteration made specifically from me, and I think I even know what it was.
Mhm. Well, I think that it could be CERN, it could be, different people doing magic, it could be some aliens messing with something that caused it to
Certainly.
shift. And it could just be some spiritual entities that are really, uh, aliens, and it could be aliens in a craft and people wouldn't know it, just flying by and doing something. I do know that some people, if they wander into certain areas on the earth, whether it's on a ley line or something that's out of the ordinary, they can walk into an alternate timeline and don't not even realize it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there's, I mean, I'm sure anyone can recall a time where they say, "Whoa, I swear my keys were right there, but now they're over here." They could have just
I
walked
know. And,
outside and walked into a different timeline and didn't even know, or
I think
dimensional
that
shift.
normal people just disregard it. I think they have just as many of these phenomena. They just always convince themselves that it was nothing. But I mean, where I am from, losing small objects is common, and they reappear. There are even like rituals to make them reappear, where you petition the fairies, the fae, who are like kind of the closest life form, but they are behind the veil. they are rumored to like steal things and then return them. But who knows what it actually is? I have had the most skeptical people ever who are, not active occultists go freaking crazy because they spend the whole day looking for, let's say, earphones, and the next day they wake up and the earphones are very conspicuously positioned on the pillow right next to them.
Mm-hmm.
So the fairies returned it. There is no way. There is no way.
Yeah, there's no science does not explain why their earbuds are right there next to them.
The biggest object that I had disappear was a winter coat. And that happened like right after. So earlier that day, I had earbuds disappear. I was at the dentist and I came there with the earbuds, but they ceased to exist. Meanwhile, I was there.
Mm.
So, I need to take this easy and just like chill out somewhere. And it was a bit warm that day, so I take off my large vampire gothic style winter coat. I lay it next to me, and it's a pizza place, and it's completely empty. Like there's nobody. I eat, and the coat is gone when I stop eating. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's a weird story because I actually had 2 exact same copies of the same piece of clothing. Because I thought the package was lost, so I filed a complaint with the company and they just straight up sent me a new one without trying to look for the package. But then, the previous package arrived, so like I have 2 of them.
Right.
And I left one of them on the East Coast behind because I was like, I'm not going to take 2 coats with me. I don't need them. I'll just like leave it here for maybe later if I return. So I had an East Coast coat and a West Coast coat. Then the West Coast coat physically disappeared. So I knew that I was moving back there, which is exactly what happened. I think that some of these objects like represent something, but for the most part, I can't figure out, for the love of God, like why is it certain objects and not other objects? I just don't know.
I don't know that either. I wouldn't be able to answer that. Your guess is as good as mine. Now, something else that you had mentioned in one of your essays, it says, quote unquote, "This is not how I originally pictured the American dream, but the truth is that it never existed. It was a giant scam all along, the greatest piece of glamour magic man has known." So I think that is true. I think that the American dream is really just a bunch of glamour magic.
I can't believe that it hasn't like dawned on me earlier.
Yeah.
I guess it's just so alluring, but I'm like, it's like a Mass Effect spell. Like this country, it's not that it has degraded since, like there was ever some golden age. It's always been like this.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the people in charge like somehow produce this magic. It is said that Hollywood does it too, because Hollywood is the magical druidic, staff from Holly. So I don't know if it's the druids, the masons, or the land itself, but I just literally woke up from this spell, and there is something very supernatural that followed my immigration here. And I think it might have to do with the time travel phenomena, because I just recently found out that my whole immigration case was never approved. It was never denied. I just simply never got a response to it. So the whole case file was apparently physically lost, destroyed by some supernatural force. Or what I actually seriously think is that it was one of those objects that originally existed, but then ceased to exist on the new timeline. So I literally don't even have any way to prove that it ever existed. And when I tried to inquire about it, I never got any response. So that's one crazy story. But
Yeah,
that would definitely be an object of importance. That's not a freaking coat or earbuds. And it disappeared. I got a receipt that it was received. The post office guarantees that.
mhm,
But I never got any reply to it in 2 years' time because apparently it doesn't exist.
mhm. Well, it's definitely possible, which it does sound like that's what it was to me. But, you know, speaking of glamour magic, I think, no doubt whoever's running this country definitely is skilled in magic to be that high up and definitely put some glamour on this country. And I'm pretty sure a lot of very famous people on TV or famous musicians or whatever. I'm sure they have glamour magic on them too.
Oh, of course. I mean, they are often like not how you imagine them. Um, they use a lot of glamour, starting with their name, which is not even their real name. It's all a persona. It's the stage persona. It's a show, but this whole country has like a stage persona,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so different underneath. And like for me, as an immigrant from a post-communist country, the most shocking part, because we need to transcend ideologies on the left-hand path, and it just kind of happened to me because I grew up being told, we dealt with those evil communists and now we have freedom and democracy and everything's gonna be great. And then I immigrate here 30 years later, and I find out, to my surprise, that a lot of the old communist propaganda, which we laughed at, like we thought that it was old wives' tales and it was so ludicrous and made up, it was actually true. They didn't need to lie
Yeah,
about it. They
it's
just
not
picked
too.
up some unflattering phenomena that go on here, and that's all they had to present to the people to scare them and to make them feel like they have it better.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, over time, it's really not too much different from how it was back in the day. Let's say, you know, on the other side of the world. But yeah, I definitely think that like take for instance maybe some high level politicians or whatever, maybe some singers, open their throat chakra before they speak or before they sing, which makes policies seem more appealing to the public or whatever it is they're trying to sell. And yeah, it's just all
People don't even know what's in these laws which are being passed all the time. But these laws exist, and therefore they create a pretense where under the law of consent, we actually have kind of consented to what's going on.
Mhm.
So it all runs under metaphysical
it
law. There is no actual injustice. People just don't understand how it works.
mhm. They tell you that this is how the world is. It's all explained by science, when really they don't tell you how energy does work and flow through all
Oh,
things, and how.
they don't even tell you things which are like, you would be shocked that they try to deny it. Like, I swear that I thought that we as women don't have any muscles down there, because when you look at the basic biological drawings of human musculature that they used to teach at um, elementary school and high school, they just don't show anything there because those are small muscles, you know? So I thought that there are none. And then I was so shocked when some yoga teacher had to explain to us and actually like kind of show us and make us realize that yes, like there is stuff there. They just didn't tell us at school. So we lived decades of our lives thinking that there's nothing down there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is coming out. A lot of the where a lot people are realizing a lot of the stuff they were taught in school was just
It's
a bunch of
bullshit.
bullshit. I mean, now that we have the internet and now that you know it's easy for stuff to leak out now. You can't really. It's harder for the establishment to hide stuff, just basically. Um, Also, something else that you've quoted was Satan needs no introduction, does not introduce
No, he
himself
doesn't.
properly.
Satan or Lucifer is the only spirit who notoriously doesn't introduce himself because of his great infamy. He just kind of lets you figure out that it's him.
And it's not the fact that, I mean, deep down, you can feel in
Who
your
you're
gut
talking to.
Yeah,
You're just like scared, or like you don't want to admit it to yourself. You want to pretend that it's the tall, dark stranger and not that you're talking to the devil himself.
Right, but that vibe says something different, and some people just don't want to accept it.
And you know what's funny? The other side, the Almighty Jehovah, who speaks through the voice of Metatron, he also doesn't introduce himself. He just starts speaking. I'm like, who is this spirit? Is that a false spirit? Is that my higher self or my alternative self? They always introduce themselves. Or like when you scry into it, you get something and I got nothing. And my friend was like, oh, that's Metatron, the voice of the Almighty. He also thinks that he's, so notorious that he doesn't need to introduce himself. Like, who do you think you're speaking to in that, flaming bush? You should know already.
Yeah. And I just thought I'd bring that up because that's something that's not discussed a lot, among practitioners. Some people just don't even give it a thought. But one thing that I do want to mention is I was going through Anima's her essays, and I think How to Master the Occult, something that I saw this and I thought, that sounds like it's something really, really important. Okay, so how to master the occult. Okay, and Anima laid out some basic practices here. Okay, so let's go over some of them. Okay, meditation, contemplate how the world has hurt you. Okay, that's easy to do. Intention setting.
Some people do that every day, right? There's so much butt hurt.
They do, and I think a lot of people don't realize that what you focus on, is what you get back. If they're afraid of something, happening, and they're preparing for it, and they get ready, you know what I mean? Well, yeah, that is the reality you're going to get because that's what you focus on, your energy on. Now, if you just kind of reject that thought and focus on something else, you may get different results. But a lot of people don't realize that they just put so much energy into something that they don't want to happen that it just ends up happening, or they have to deal with it. But yeah, so meditation, contemplate how the world has hurt you. Intention setting. Find someone who is to blame for everything in your life today. Now, attitude of gratitude. Make a list of everything the world owes you. Ancestor veneration. Fuel some old family feud. Blame it all on your parents. That's easy to do. A lot of people do that. Health conscious. Start your day by getting high or getting drunk. Okay.
A lot of people do that too in our circles. Like, let's not ignore the elephant in the living room. A lot of these cursing wars, where people see the proof that somebody has attacked them, it's drug-fueled paranoia.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. A lot of it is paranoia all in people's head. But, just got to make a big deal about it. Morning routine. Post a cheesy motivational quote, nature porn, or something smug about how great your life is. Daily ritual. Get current with the latest gossip. That's very common. Oh, also ritual 2. Log into your secondary accounts to check up on all the people you have blocked on your primary accounts. Cast a death curse at someone you randomly picked from your Facebook friend list. Bedtime practice. Text about how everybody is hurting you. Cry yourself to sleep. Then nightly ritual, wake up in the middle of the night, paranoid as fuck that somebody is working magic against you, pop some sleeping pills or drink yourself back to sleep, and then work magic against them. All of them. They know who they are. They're everywhere. And then I'm just going to scroll to the very, very bottom, and it says, after you have fully mastered these basic tenets, you might be eligible to become the next star of the internet occult scene, also known as influencer.
Hey, that place is vacant now. I was banned from YouTube, straight up canceled for the rest of my life. So
which is unfortunate. But but yeah, I just thought I'd go ahead and bring that up. I thought people might get a
And
kick out of that.
people have been butthurt a lot just by me republishing this 2 years later, because I thought, it's timeless. People still haven't changed. I still see the same shit around. So like, let's republish it. And everybody felt that I'm talking about them, which means that the satire was correct. If everybody thinks that you're talking about them, then you hit something.
Right. If I mean, if the shoe fits, wear it. But just because something vague is said, people don't necessarily have to always say, oh, it must be me. So, I'm going to focus on it and retaliate in some way or just be bitter, you know. Um, but let's move on to something else here. You mentioned about Astaroth, okay? Astaroth being the enslaver of Western civilization. Um, some people don't realize how dangerous she is. You mentioned about the Ring of Sloth, loss of ambition and so forth. Can you comment a little bit about those statements there?
I have been kind of flirting with Ashtaroth for a few years now. She's many things. She's a patron of strippers, um, spies, beauticians, and other professions, but she also traditionally rules in the Ring of Sloth in Hell, which is a place where depression resides, loss of motivation, taking the easy road through life, when
Mm-hmm.
people end up doing nothing more than superficial, vapid, passive entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
consuming it, meanwhile, getting their money from the government or their spouse or um, disability. And it's very insidious because like she gets you through these temptations where you feel like you're living comfort, like you don't have to do anything, but you don't want to do anything. You become
Exactly.
incapable of doing anything. You stop striving for anything, and that's a very anti-left-hand path.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean,
it comes with a sense of like entitlement. Like all these people who got nothing to do, they feel special. I see, I see a lot of it, a lot of passive consuming of entertainment. Um, and even YouTube was like that. I have a lot
yeah,
of people telling me, we miss your voice. Because like we would listen to you and then fall asleep. It was like therapy. It was comforting, consoling. Well, maybe that's not what I was here for, though. Like, I don't want to comfort and console people. I want to provoke them.
take people out of their comfort zone and bring them to their full potential.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you could use the analogy of a frog being in warm water and thinking, "Wow, this is very comfortable."
That's
Not
absolutely what it
not
is.
not knowing that slowly the heat's being turned up, and then before they know it, they're being boiled. You know,
And there's a lot of boiled frogs out there.
there is.
People have become complacent. They can be bribed and they rationalize their own pathetic state um, to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's all over the place. But well, let's go ahead and plug your stuff here. So you have your website, which is it animanoria.com?
Yes, that's where all
Okay,
the links are.
animanoria.com. You can also find her on Twitter, which is now X, you
Yes.
know, and that's a whole shit show of a whole nother subject right there. But and then she's
But
also
I'm grateful for Twitter because
yeah.
they allow adult content, which is what I was allegedly banned for from YouTube, and which is what Facebook has been throwing at
Mhm.
me. So on Twitter, I don't have to be worried, if I post a picture of a demoness and she has a nipple, even though it's a
Yeah.
fictional picture of a fictional being.
and and I see that on your Twitter, and I've been satisfied with I haven't had a problem as of yet, posting stuff on the Dark Sorcery Twitter account or X account. But I can see that there's a lot of changes with the new ownership going on that's just kind of throwing a lot of people off. It's in the process of transitioning, and so it's just causing some people confusion. Um, that's all I was saying. But yeah, your website, Twitter, and Instagram. Everybody who's watching, the links will be right below in the video description. Anything else you want to go ahead and add before we call it a night?
Yeah, I'm gonna say one thing. Freedom of speech is important. You shouldn't be cheering for somebody being banned just because you don't like them, because you can be the next. And I have personally learned that through my personal experience.
Yeah, everybody be on your toes because it is possible that freedom of speech can be stamped out, slowly, but I believe that as time goes by, the hammer is going to be brought down even harder, and so just be wary of what's going on. So, but Anima, thank you for your time. It's been great talking with you again. Everybody, check out those links, and everybody who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.